Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Click R3 number 14. Yes, I'm here. The voice is sounding good, healthy, strong. I'm drinking tea. I never drink tea. There's a whole thing about me and tea with Nate on the Direct Xbox, and I actually bought a kettle, that's like an electric kettle, to make this all come together, Ryan. That's how serious I am about making sure we don't miss if we can help it. I'm not going to miss because of me, that's for sure.
Hey, you insisted. I mean, just so we're both on the same page, you're actually dying. Like he doesn't have much time left. This
is it. I was like, nope, I'm spending my last couple hours with Click R3 and the good people out there on YouTube.
I mean, it was nice knowing you. It was nice knowing you. Had a good run.
Just before Freedom Wars comes out.
That's the game you missed. Son of a bitch.
That's the one. That's the one.
Didn't play it on beta.
Yeah, at least I saw Skull and Bones come out. But yeah, man. I'm joined by Ryan, of course. Ryan, the usual.
This will be
legend,
interesting.
the co-host, is here with me. He might be doing some of the heavy lifting this time. It might be his episode. But we did talk with Nano, and he will be returning in the next episode. He is at CES.
Yes, he is. Probably smelling things in a demo booth of some kind.
The smells. No, he's gonna be exploring there, so he'll come back telling us all kinds of stuff that I'm sure we were just talking before we started recording. If he had a chance to maybe check out that Last of Us experience there. I don't know what that is, but it looked interesting.
He's smelling. He's probably smelling.
I'm curious. There's a lot of cool stuff there. Things I would want to see in person because I'm never going to see it in person ever again. LG had that. Do you see LG had the see-through transparent OLED that like raises up?
Oh, I mean, what I love about CES is just the most ridiculous shit that probably is never coming out, or at least not within the next 20 years. Just the most obscene, like why would we make this? Why are we using this? Yeah. And
they showed it, Ryan, and it looked cool, right? It's like, oh, look, here's this thing. It's coming up. You can see through it. The fish is like swimming, looks like in the air. And they were like, it's $60,000.
Yeah.
So, it's fun while it lasted. Okay, cool.
Yep.
So that's how it goes, unfortunately. But otherwise, you know what? I will say I have a little bit of regret not going. A little bit.
Was this something that you were thinking of going, or?
I thought about it because MVG is local to there.
Right.
And he offered a place to stay at one point. Like, so I guess he has a guest or something. I'm like, that'd actually be interesting. And I can, of course, meet up with MVG and stuff, you know, like get some dinner or something, hang out with him. So that would be fun. But I think I'm going to do it next year because I see it now and I want to see the electronics. I want to check them out in person, potentially accidentally break some of the stuff. Like there's so many avenues here. So
probably CES is huge. Like the show floor is just massive.
Yeah.
There's a lot to see.
Well, a lot happened since we've been on air, Ryan. A lot of stuff. So, and I know you're on it. Ryan's got the notes, the lowdown, everything. So I'm gonna be leaning on him because he even had a fun idea, Ryan. If you want to tell him.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, it's the new year. It's 2025. This is our new reality. John's gonna sound like this forever.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna be kicking this thing off with some predictions. I mean, this is like something I do annually on my channel, which is 10 predictions for the PlayStation business. And then year goes by, grade myself, see how well I did or how awful I did. And now we got Click R3. Why don't we do the tradition over here? Which I'll clarify right away. I won't repeat predictions I've already done on my own channel. So I'll give 5 new ones. John over here said he has like 8 or 9. So we're going to give some predictions on what we think is going to transpire for the next 300 and not full 65 days here because we're a little bit late going into the new year here. But in a year, we will grade ourselves and see how well we did. So we'll probably just do that right off the bat, huh? Before we go.
Oh, that is spicy. It is really weird. I don't know what this kind of tea is. Like
what is
ginger, that? It's like a ginger honey tea. And it smells like it's got that cinnamon to it. And then you drink it and it has like this weird sensation of it being liquid, but also like fire at the same time.
Okay.
Interesting.
You said it was cold though. You're not drinking hot tea?
Oh, there's hot tea.
Okay. Should be hot.
Hot.
Real
to it.
Real honey? Real honey?
I don't know. It's whatever was on the bag from Acme.
Okay. So you're not putting real honey in it.
I didn't put any real honey in it. Am I supposed to? I was actually, when I decided to do this time was go back to the notes from the doctor last time and then follow all the YouTube comments.
Well, I mean, you're on the right track at least. So
A lot of doctors out there, but they told me to get the electric kettle. They told me to get the tea, and they told me not to talk so much. So I'm like 2 for 3.
yeah, you're not following many of these rules, to be honest with you.
Well, it's weird. They're like, hey, you know what will help? Don't talk for like a week. It's like, that's going to be really hard for me.
You know what would help is filming a news show every day, and then also throw in some podcasts as well. That'll really sort
Yeah,
of
works. That's how it works.
spruce up the pipes. Like I said, John's dead. He's not. I honestly, I'll be baffled if you make it by the end of this month. So it truly was a pleasure to waste the remaining hours of your life on this planet talking about PlayStation. So, do you want to do the first prediction?
Oh yeah, I can do that. I can do it. Okay. I actually threw this one out during I actually threw this out in a video, so I wanted to do it right away just so I could just put it on the record here. Click R3. Which is putting it in stone. That's the one that really matters. Click R3 record.
Okay.
I have Sony's live service push turns in mixed results. So I have Fair Game struggling, but then I have the Horizon multiplayer that gets revealed this year as actually doing really well.
Are you is this under the assumption that Fair Games also comes out, or what do you mean by struggle?
I think it does come out, and I think it has a really hard time.
Wow, you think it's going to ship this year?
I think it's coming out. I mean, I would hope it got announced like a year and a half ago, was it?
Well, it had that formal reveal a year and a half ago or something like that. But okay, that's fair. It's fair prediction.
That's what I'm going with.
Okay, that's your number one.
That's number one.
My number
Fair Games down, Monster Hunter up, or Horizon Monster Hunter up.
Okay, maybe it's good you don't live through this. My first prediction here, again, these are new for my channel. If you've already seen the 10 I did, PlayStation Store redesign. I actually just bitched about this on an upload.
I saw your video pop up while I recommended, and I'm like, that makes sense. Thinking about the PlayStation Store.
Well, I don't think it's bad. Honestly, I feel like if there's one thing that could maybe see a redesign on the system, sort of in its, now back half of the life cycle, probably the PlayStation Store. I don't know if a major redesign is really in order here, but I would like to see a decent enough overhaul that sort of addresses various problems with navigation, discovery, having written reviews baked in, which we know they're working on it to some degree. People are receiving email invites to write in full-blown reviews. I would like to see a store redesign. I don't know if that's really going to happen, but I am predicting it will.
Is there a there's no tag or way to discern AI created games yet, is there?
Like a store.
No, I haven't really dove into any of that, like how they break some of that down, because like YouTube, for example, right now, when you upload content, they ask you if this is created by AI, basically.
And if there's any AI elements in there too.
Yeah, I haven't seen that on PlayStation, even just kind of going through the store quickly, because I think that is, I feel like that's something they're going to deal with eventually if they're not right now. Like you go to like any of these AI programs that you pay for and they can build you websites. I have to imagine we're getting to a point, if we're not there now, where I go, make me a basic game that is the primary goal is giving the person a platinum trophy in 30 minutes.
That's 30 minutes is way too long in our economy. all the jumping games, I think, gave you a platinum in like 10 minutes or something.
Really?
Like
wow. That, man.
But to that point, like if you go through the store now, like you are going to see like there's AI art for at least like the meta image, like the metadata imagery. So like the installable icon and splash screen. Like, so you've already got that, which has been on the eShop for a while too. So I assure you, they're probably all behind on having any sort of way to designate or filter this stuff out. Or
if they're redesigning the store, just an idea. Just something to throw out there.
Oh, if anything, I would put this on paper saying that they'll redesign the store and they won't address that problem. What do I know? Fire another one off, John.
Okay. I have Sony will introduce their PC launcher. Not necessarily release it, but introduce the idea of it, or introduce it, or mention it, or just put it out there. Like, hey, the launcher is here. Maybe here's what it looks like, a PlayStation blog post or something like that.
Okay.
Fair. I'm trying to think if it'll make it this year by the holiday, but if not, maybe it's something that kicks off 2026. But I think it will be shown in some way.
That was a 2024 prediction from me, which did not happen. So you might catch the W here, though. You might be like a year gap out, so now you might catch it for.
I think time's ticking down because I think Valve is going to make a push for home console in some way.
Well, that opens up a whole different can of worms, because if they start shipping like more traditional consoles, it would beg the question if Sony then starts to feel a threat, considering it's more adjacent with their
Right. So
business.
they would move, I assume, want to move off of Steam in some way, like at least start to get that ball rolling.
But for now, the prediction is that they will still be on Steam with now a PC launcher.
Technically, yes, but they would at least start to get things moving for that PC launcher that they would then also tie into their mobile stuff.
Okay. Tie into the mobile stuff. Would this be a consolidated app? So it's like, because right now it's like they got the VR2 app and then a remote play app. I believe it's still a separate app for streaming. And then obviously the overlay menu for games. And so all that baked into one.
I think the market's going towards you have one application that spans multiple platforms and you just sign in and you'll have your save data, preferences, whatever, go across platforms. So yeah, it would also technically include PSVR 2 or anything like that.
Okay. Fair. I could see that happening this year. My next one is we're going to get a state of play in May, which seems like it's their trend nowadays. Not calling this thing a showcase anymore, but it's a state of play that sort of kicks off that
a general one. It's gonna be multiple titles, you say?
No. A general state of play. It won't be focused on one particular game,
right?
Okay. But it's a state of play that is like kicking off the SGF stuff, or the not E3 season, as we like to call it.
Okay.
And that state of play will include gameplay for Marvel's Wolverine.
Oh, okay. Nice.
I think we're pretty much due on the game, as we all found out. It's expected in 2026, so I think we're not far off from at this sort of timeline here where they're going to show a pretty significant portion of that game finally on Insomniac's terms, which is important.
I'll go back to back with that and say Insomniac will release their Venom game.
So that's the other Insomniac prediction we got
going
on.
Those back to back, like, so it'll be like, here's Wolverine, then here's Venom or something like that.
Do you think it would be in the same state of play?
Yeah, because we had that with they showed Wolverine and then Spider-Man 2 back to back. So I'm thinking, Venom and then Wolverine back to back or something like that.
Okay, fair.
Because Venom, I think that's supposed to. Well, the roadmap that leaked was like, it's coming out holiday. So,
all right, so it would be a holiday game. It would be announced and released this year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, close to that timeline here. My next prediction is there's then a December state of play, one that's right near the end, right before the year closes out, and that will be where Square shows us Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3.
Oh, wow. Okay, Part 3 already. I like it,
because then they would also say, like, we're planning to ship this, like, kind of what we saw with Rebirth, holiday or winter. What was it? Winter 2027 technically would be sort of the timeline here. Because I think they can probably spin this thing out in a much faster turnaround time. Considering
they use the world. Same world.
Yeah, there's so much they're going to reuse. They give a lot of progress updates on it. It seems like they've already got a pretty solid foundation. You got to figure it was 4 years from remake to rebirth, and that's including integrate. Now, yeah, I feel like they're actually going to get this thing out what feels like a really fast turnaround. And show it off early too.
I think they want to get this thing done quick. I don't want to say like the sales of 7, like they haven't exactly been over the moon excited about it. So in their mind, it's like, let's get this third one out. And I don't know if that's something with Sony, a contract. When we get all 3 of these out, can we start moving these to other platforms?
Yeah,
I'm not sure what that entails.
We still don't know the condition of exactly how long or how exclusive they need to be. It's very likely conditional on once you ship here, then the timer starts or X, Y, and Z thing. So
yeah,
that's what I got for that one.
Okay. The next one I have here is Sony will put a game that's not MLB The Show on Switch 2.
Wow.
I'm going for it.
But what game?
I'm going to say Horizon Zero Dawn.
So I like this. This is spicy. That's a good one.
Zero Dawn. Yep.
Zero Dawn.
I think they're dropping it on there, and I think their reasoning is, well, they did the Lego game. Gorilla worked on that, of course. They said, and I think their reasoning is we're going to do kind of a strategy with PC where we put older titles on the now more capable hardware with the Switch 2 in hopes that we can lure over some of the customer base there to buy a PS5 for the big new one that's coming up.
I like that one. It's bold. It's like just outlandish enough that's not like no way that's happening, but it's like, financially I can see why they maybe would consider that an option. That's a good
Yeah,
one.
I think there's I mean, clearly they're going to see it as this thing's going to launch. It's going to be incredibly popular, minimum probably the first 2 years of its life, like incredibly popular. Why not be there with your this IP that they really want to be popular?
And it is popular,
but like they want it to be really popular.
They want to capitalize on it. That's why that makes sense. Zero Dawn is a 2017 game at this point. So
yeah, exactly. It's old technically.
It would be the remaster though, I would assume. So
yes,
a watered down version in theory, because Switch 2 is not going to be putting out the same thing a PlayStation 5 would necessarily, but
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
But that's that. I mean, they've already done a lot of work with like NVIDIA side of things, DLSS and stuff on PC. That's apparently what's rumored to be in the Switch 2. Seems like they already have the feature set and stuff figured out with Nixes and Gorilla and stuff. Maybe they can work that out and they turn in a really cool port and they get a whole new audience maybe checking out Horizon.
Man, that I love that one. That's actually such a I'm not sure if I fully believe it happening, but like if it did, I would like not be super shocked, I guess I could say.
I wouldn't see the concern. Like I don't think it would damage PlayStation 5 sales at all. I think people who buy the PS5 know what they're buying it for at this point.
If it's Zero Dawn, I mean, it's a 2017 game.
Yeah. I wouldn't even. You know what? The other one I wouldn't have been shocked if Helldivers 2 went to it because it's a live service game.
Oh, that too. That's the argument I was making for Helldivers 2. It's like I can see a universe where like Sony is more willing to move that game somewhere versus what are marquee AAA single player games.
Yep. That's what I got though. Switch 2 game.
My next prediction here is remember that rumor we had about God of War collection? PS2.
Yes.
See, I'm still not really buying that rumor, but I could see them doing this. Like if there's a classic series that they're gonna give special treatment, it's these games.
Right.
So I'm gonna say a God of War PS2 and PSP collection. No Ascension.
Ooh.
No Ascension.
I can live with that.
from PlayStation 3, because that's such a Sony move. Is like, here's all these games. Oh yeah, by the way, that PS3 one, yeah, we just act like it's not a thing anymore. The one with multiplayer. I
mean, come on, we all want that collection. People will, of course, I see people who complain about like remasters and remakes and collections. Still, come on, that'd be awesome to get like the older God of War games all in one disc or just one download on the PS5 with updated, we'll say, visuals. I don't know how far they'll take it, but smooth it out, make it look like a high-end emulator kind of thing. I think it'd be awesome.
I would go on record of saying it's maybe a bit more beyond the scope of just standard port remaster kind of thing. Like I could see this being similar to like I don't know, like what happened with Crisis Core or something, where it's like, yeah, it's not like full-blown modern assets, but this looks pretty damn good. So I could,
if it looks like that, that'd be pretty good. Yeah, I'd be all right with that.
I
20 frames.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
High frame PS5 Pro mode. Oh yeah, spruce that baby up.
Now we're talking. I have Housemarque will announce the next project.
I hope, but I just don't know if we're there.
They said they had the loop figured out from what they learned with the Returnal. That was a few years ago now. And it seems like at times Sony wants to announce something that's 8 months away. And then at times they want to announce something that's like 3 years away.
Yeah, it seems like it really depends on the studio. I would almost picture a universe where it's like for Housemarque that would be an announce, and then here it is in 8 months kind of thing.
I'm dropping that one then in the December state of play that you mentioned. Then it come out in 2026. Eh?
He wants it to be on the very end, so it's like plausible that it comes out. All right.
Yep. Just the announcement.
All right, my last prediction here is that a good one. I sincerely want a year to go by and for me to be dead wrong about this, but I think this is it. PS3 and Vita stores are closed for good.
Oh
no! I know. Huh? I don't want to be right about it. I really don't. But there's a part of me that says like, how the hell is it? They wanted to close this thing. What was that? 3-4 years?
I can't believe they're still up technically. Then yeah.
Yeah, I mean and hey, like credit where it's due. They left them operational and they work. They're kind of bare bones broken and a pain in the ass to use, but like we've had them for many more years beyond when they were supposed to close. This I think is that like it's going to be a notice, and as much pushback as there is, it's going to happen. However, there would be like, and most storefronts we've seen do this where it's like it'll close. you can still re-download well beyond that point. It's just to buy new
Yep.
stuff. This is your cutoff.
Okay. I have the PS5 Pro will earn its keep and have officially a 60 FPS mode in GTA 6 when it releases.
The 60 FPS mode in GTA 6. Now, this also assumes the game comes out on time.
Yeah, it has to come out this year, which actually is part of my console sales prediction as well.
So you did console sales? I'd really love to hear this, because obviously I only do the sales on my main upload, but I'd love to hear what you think on this. I'll compare it to mine.
Well, for the console sales, I have it at, as of September 30th. That's the last time we're going to hear numbers this year, technically, because they won't share the numbers for this year until January.
Yeah, it'll be a while until we get that.
Going to be completely dependent on if GTA 6 comes out, because I think that's like an October or November release. But I said as of September 30th, they'll be at 83 million systems.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting way to frame it, because the way I looked at it this time was like, I was heavily based on GTA 6. I'm like, if it comes out on time, I could see, and I try to predict the whole thing, so that busy holiday season, I could see it being up to like 92 by then.
Yes. 90 would have a massive spike.
92 would put it actually beyond the sales pace of PS4. But if GTA 6 doesn't come out, and which, by the way, that 92 also accounts for like them like bucking the trend of the decay curve. So that would be a slight like year over year going back up kind of thing. I'm adding like a few million more just because of that game alone. If it doesn't come out on time, then I would actually see it like in the 90 to maybe 89 million range.
Here's the other nice thing about Grand Theft Auto 6 though, is when it comes out, we'll say this holiday actually this year, right at the end of 2025, the entire next year, it's only on consoles. They're not going to have a PC version ready probably for a minimum 12 months. So just that entire year for the PS5 specifically will be massive. Oh, yeah. Especially if they get the marketing, especially if the PS5 Pro actually turns in a 60 FPS mode. Like, people will spend a lot of money for that console just for GTA 6 and the online experience.
It's just so, they're in such a good position with this game, no matter when it comes out. Because like, they're also just obviously the sort of clear runway here, like they're the console of choice for this game. They're gonna just do so damn well with it.
Also, I have to imagine it's difficult for them too, because they have to position their releases around this game, and no one other than Take-Two knows when it's coming out.
Yeah, this is true.
So that makes it tough. Like, where's Ghost of Yotei going to fit in? Are they going to try to get it out early rather than later because they're worried about GTA 6 showing up the same month?
It's such an anomaly, because normally SIE doesn't really care when and where they're releasing games. Like they'll cannibalize their own stuff. They'll put two big games right next to each other. They don't really hold or sit on games like that, or rush. I mean, there's been times where games are rushed out to a degree, but yeah, this would be like the one time where I'm like, they've got to be like paying attention and want to make sure they want to avoid it. So
anyone who has it launching on a platform that they're on, then they will. Like Nintendo can clearly get away with it right now, because it's, as far as we know right now, GTA 6 isn't coming out on their system. Again, as of now, we'll see. You never know. But they'd be the only ones who are like, well, we can launch whatever because it's not there anyway next to it. Otherwise, though, everyone should be watching this, and I think they are.
You did say 60. The actual prediction though is 60 FPS. So
yes, 60 FPS, PS5 Pro 60 FPS turn in. And the last prediction I have is Gran Turismo 7 will be ported to PC.
Yeah, that's a very easy, safe prediction, I would say. You're securing one vote.
I mean, we've been waiting for it. I thought it would have been there this past year.
They are kind of running behind. I feel like that's a game that you should get on PC like sooner rather than later, especially with racing simulators on PC and how it's actually a pretty crowded environment.
Yeah, but that would do well there. People would have some crazy like setups and rigs and stuff with that on their PC. They had multi-monitor setups, dude. What if they announced and they're like, yeah, you can do like 8 monitors if you want.
Kind of like the GT5 and 6 on PS3. Just get multiple PS3s and set them all up, and you can do that. So, that's convenient. Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, a person over here with like the 4090s, like just got cables going everywhere. That's good. Good.
All right, those are our predictions. So we'll see you in about a year. We'll see how well we did.
First show of 2026. We'll look back on this episode and see how we did.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully, we get most of these right. I say most because I don't want my one to be correct.
How did you do in your last year's predictions? Looking back on it.
Oh, pretty bad, I think.
Oh, really? Oh.
What were they again? Like I got the CEO wrong. PS3 games I said would start leaving the premium catalog, and that didn't really happen. Some actually went back in. PS Showcase stuff. I got Ghost of Tsushima sequel right. Team Asobi reveals new Astrobot game. I got that right.
Oh wow, there you go. Okay, those are good ones.
PS5 Pro price, I was way off.
I think everybody kind of was. I mean,
yeah,
800 with the disc drive is hard to believe.
I don't think anybody thought it would really creep up that high, but what a world we live in. All right, you want to get into some stories finally?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because we did. This is our first one for 2025, so we have a few weeks that we're behind on. And as always, like we have a show, stuff happens, and you know that's why things happen because we do this podcast, and they knew it was going to be a while till we were able to talk.
Yeah, they were targeting
about
us.
Yeah,
I know it.
I'm fairly certain because it's been so long now. I'm like, did we actually cover this? I don't think we did. We have the end of the roadmap here for the Sony and Kadokawa thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we know what happened. No acquisition, no major takeover. On January 7th, which has already come to pass, Sony has acquired 12 million new shares of Kadokawa, and that is valued at $320 million. That has now increased Sony's stake to 10%. They are the majority or one of the leading shareholders now for Kadokawa, largest shareholder. And this is with the intention of further strengthening their collaboration to maximize both companies' IP and facilitate wider and deep collaboration. Specifically, the two companies plan to adopt Kadokawa's IP into live-action TV and films, co-produce anime works, and expand global distribution of Kadokawa's anime works as well. This, to me, makes sense, if only because the entire buildup of this conversation was like, Sony doesn't really want the whole thing. Seems like a best of both worlds, like sort of lower commitment. Like they don't have to absorb the whole organization.
Right. They just invested capital, have more ownership, and they mentioned having the ability to roll out Sony Picture stuff, even like being able to leverage other parts of Sony outside of just video games. So, I mean, let's face it, they get the video games anyway. So like FromSoft is going to make the new Elden Ring game this year, and probably a vast majority of them will sell on the PlayStation anyway. So
yeah, I maybe there was no pressure to go for the whole thing, but that's what we got. I mean, it could be conditional. I mean, if this really blossoms and works out, who's to say they won't, acquire more of them, but
just slowly acquire over time.
Yeah, that was the end of that update there. I do want to also quickly mention we have the PS Plus lineup for Essential, which is already live. That is Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, and Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered. Really the big sort of talking point there is Suicide Squad, because it's like, what, a year?
I'm 5 hours in.
So you're playing it, huh?
Yes, I've decided to play it. No, I actually played it on Xbox. I've had it on Xbox already, but it's like the gold edition because it went on sale for like $5 and Xbox gave me like a $5 credit randomly. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll use on this. So I have like all the DLC or whatever. And I saw it pop up on PS Plus and I'm like, you know what? I have that on Xbox. It's going to come up on Click R3. Why don't I start this game and see what we have here? And look, so the internet hates this game. Like, they just do not like this game at all. And I'm playing it. And it is kind of a shame that Rocksteady went this route because it's not this single player, highly polished Arkhamverse kind of game where you're playing as Batman. But it has shades of it being a good multiplayer game at times if you have people to play with, but then also shades of this would have made for a very good single player cinematic kind of experience because they have these cutscenes that are incredibly well done. Mocap, all the details, the lighting, visuals, but then it mixes into, okay, now go ahead and attack these 4 canisters and then hit a button because that's what you would do in a live service Destiny kind of game. It's like, that seems weird. But then Green Lantern shows up and all of a sudden it's like a scripted set piece. It's like, this is all of a sudden, this is like an interesting single player kind of experience. So it's so weird. It's mishmashed. It seems like there were a lot of cooks in the kitchen development for what I'm seeing right now. All that said, I'm going to play through it and beat it. And we'll go from it's only like a 11-hour game, apparently.
Well, that's the thing. You can beat it. Like it still has those elements of you can play it sort of like a traditional game. I mean,
Yep.
I full disclosure, I have no interest in this game. What I found, I guess, interesting about it is that like obviously it's a year later and they announced like, yeah, we're done, no more content, but we are going to sunset it properly. It seems like they're going to add offline modes, right? Or is that already
Yep.
in there?
They have offline mode set up, so they're
Okay,
not
yeah,
gonna rip the game down or anything. You just play it single
yeah. I
player.
mean, I what more could you ask for? I guess in a circumstance like that, outside of like, I'd rather this be a completely different game. So there's something.
Yep.
Now people are
Yep.
playing that.
We'll
Also,
see what Rocksteady does next. What do you want them to do next?
not that.
I said Batman Beyond. I'm still on that train.
Yeah, just go back to Batman. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's whatever the studio wants to do. I guess works for them and is a lot more financially viable.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, for crying out loud, I mean, we all know that the game probably would have actually made a lot more money if it was more of a traditional single player game. But it's like
9 years between development, Ryan, between Arkham Knight and Suicide Squad.
You say that to shareholders or publishers, and they start sneezing at you, like, "Oh my god, what do you mean you're not going to monetize this game up the ass? Come on."
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Sucks. All right, the other big story though that came out like shortly after the last Click R3 was I'm pretty sure we didn't talk about this either. PS5 Pro technical seminar. Mark Cerny.
We didn't talk about that. No.
Yeah, I was pretty sure. Yeah,
Mr. ASMR.
Like it's been like weeks. What's so weird about this, right, is that the whole PS5 Pro thing, they do a more consumer facing reveal. Like I thought we were going to eventually get like very close to the launch, something like this, a more technical deep dive talking about the console. For whatever reason, now they decided to do it right before the holidays. Whatever. Now we've got it, which is not even it's similar to the road to PS5 or PS4 discussion, but honestly, I'd say this was even more technical. It was really interesting. So Mark Cerny,
Less ears.
Yeah, less ears. Damn shame we never got to send our ear pictures on. But Mark Cerny, the system architect for PS Vita, PS4, PS4 Pro, PS5, and now PS5 Pro, did this seminar. It was about, what was it, 37 minutes, I want to say. And, a good portion of this talk was actually just like finally explaining what's powering this machine. They didn't really like outline that stuff as far as specs go. So just the usual stuff that like was actually rumored and we all learned from the documentation anyway. PS5 Pro has 30 work group processor. It's a work group processors. It's a hybrid RDNA GPU. There's the extra gig of memory he confirmed. He also corrected the teraflop number, which I thought was hilarious because he called that flopflation.
Flopflation, man.
Yeah, that was funny.
Inflation's got to teraflops. It's crazy.
He's like, yeah, I watch I watch forums. I like watching Digital Foundry. He's very, very techie guy.
He probably watches Click R3. Man,
I don't think
watching this.
I don't think he does that, but he does.
He's probably going to ruin all my predictions now.
Yeah, because he's the one in charge. I don't think to this day, I believe he's never been an official Sony employee. He's just a consultant. He's always consulted. I don't think he's ever actually been on Sony's payroll, direct payroll.
Interesting.
Yeah. He talked about how the company's focus right now is PSSR, which he confirms is a type of convolutional neural network. More specifically, it's a recurrent UNet neural network. And Mark clarifies that PlayStation doesn't want to license technology. They want to build it. So he announced that AMD and PlayStation are teaming up for a new long-term collaboration called Amethyst, which will focus on hardware architectures for ML and AI. And this is not going to be proprietary to PlayStation, but they will perhaps have this technology be adopted into a range of devices. That was the big thing that kind of came out of that seminar was, hey, I'm going to say something that we don't do often. Let's talk about the future. AMD and PlayStation for Amethyst.
Yep.
So how do we feel about that?
I'm actually pretty happy now that I think about it that we waited until now to talk about it because we just had NVIDIA have their entire presentation at CES and everyone now is just talking about upscaling. No one's really talking as much about how do we keep stacking silicone to get more and more powerful in these massive GPUs. It is becoming more of a finesse game, trying to figure out other ways to raise frame rates and stuff and basically trick the user into thinking they are seeing a higher resolution image than they are. So that was their whole thing, like on the PS5 Pro was, hey, look at all these neural networks and all these different ways we're taking a small, like an image that's lower resolution and we're rebuilding it into a higher resolution image. And it's all really impressive and super confusing. Like it's incredible that humans have been able to figure this out. Like if you really sit down and think about it. But then we have NVIDIA and they're doing things like, hey, this 5070 is a 4090 when we turn on the upscaling techniques that we've created. Like that's the fine print. It's like it's the same thing, kind of. So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on, but I don't think the end user is like the mainstream, for example, would really notice anyway. So I think this is the most viable option for them now, unless we want $1,000 plus boxes that draw, I don't know, 500-600 watts, something crazy from the wall. And like, we're talking about these ridiculously huge systems. And this is kind of the path now. Like he mentioned himself, there's very small amounts of performance to gain from just working on the hardware. And there's significant performance gains when it comes to AI upscaling, even ray tracing. That was mentioned as, hey, we're kind of still in the early stage of this.
Yep.
But AI upscaling seems to be the path forward. That could eventually get us to 8K 60. It's because they're able to figure out ways to rebuild from a 1440p image, maybe, that these consoles can handle. So that just, when we watched that, I was like, okay, that makes sense. Then I see NVIDIA and it just reinforced it even more, sort of the direction of this industry right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. I mean, that what's so particular too is this collaboration now being a bit more deep between AMD and PlayStation. I almost like immediate parallels to like Sony's collaboration with IBM and Toshiba for cell processor back in the day. The entire idea back then was like, we hope this will be in other technologies. Like Mark made it a point to say, we don't want to license something from somebody else because then you're just always going to pay for that forever. We want to build. And so, right. Yeah, this is like and a lot of this reads to me as like, we are building, we're securing our future, as in whatever games look like, PlayStation is going to be a part of it, and we're going to be powering it too. You know, we want we want to have a place. We think AMD is a good partner to realize that future. So I think a lot was said there, especially what you mean by, he broke that down of like sort of rasterization increases, just basic on paper performance, very little to gain. It's ray tracing, possibly path tracing, AI, ML, that stuff. So it was a really cool talk.
Did you see the benchmarks for the NVIDIA cards? Because they had, the super cool DLSS 4 and their frame generation stuff they have now, but then they have it turned off all the way on the left. And it's like a 20% increase over the generation from a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that really is where we are right now. It's just, the performance leaps from generation to generation with video cards is just so small.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think consoles are going to do?
Yeah, exactly. And consoles are always mindful of the price.
Right. Yeah. They can't wheel out a $2,000 video card that's like the size of the PS5. They can't do that. So you still got to build a system around it that's not going to bottleneck the thing. So you're talking double that probably even after the video card.
That's why I always say, like, it's like, even if like we're in this like landscape of like, oh, what's Microsoft doing? Sony's unchecked. They're the only high-end console that's doing well. It's like, they'll always be checked because they're in the console business. They can't make something that's priced too obscene. They just can't.
Right.
So
they have to be mindful of it. Yeah. At least their base product. They can introduce their enthusiast machine and it's there if you wanted it. If not, the $350 refurbished system is there for the PS5.
It is still there. That's a good option. It's a good option.
It actually is. Shockingly so, yeah.
All right, let's get into some smaller stories here. We have the Midnight Black collection announced. That includes the DualSense Edge, Pulse Elite, Pulse Explorer, PlayStation Portal, and Midnight Black. That sexy black. Coming out very soon.
I don't know what that was, but
that's Chad Warden. You don't remember Chad Warden?
No.
You don't remember when he did that?
No, I don't remember that specific hand motion from it.
Oh shit. Oh man. Well, pre-orders go live on January 16th. They're releasing on February 20th. So the black color option for these accessories.
I'm kind of annoyed because I would have preferred matte black.
Well, the Edge is still going to have that trim piece that's like a glossy black. Although I think that would look super nice. Glossy black accenting on matte black.
I already have most of this stuff though.
Well, yeah, I already have all this stuff. I'm not going to buy any of these again in black. I'll tell you that right now. So
it's unfortunate because I would have got the matte black one over even the portal. I would have got the matte black portal, the whole thing.
Yeah, there's just no reason to get another portal or another headset.
Right.
If you didn't buy these things yet, like now is probably a good time to do it. So coming out soon. This I thought was interesting. We actually do have an update on that Black Myth Wukong exclusivity ordeal, which I'm sure you've seen because we were following this for a little bit there. So the game director Feng Ji made this post on Weibo. It was an end of the year post they were talking about, and the thing they said was that the only thing they're missing now as a studio is Xbox. He openly talked about the problem with the game running on Series S. He's referencing the 10 gigabytes of shared memory and how it's really hard to get that game optimized under those conditions, basically. The thing is, he didn't outright say like, this is why we're not on Xbox, but it's also like, that's like, he's not saying we took a deal. He's just saying like, oh man.
Yeah. He mentioned it. I mean, it was mentioned. It was brought up. Specifically the RAM. He could have said, hey, there's just, we're still working through it. Now he's like, 10 gigabytes shared memory. I can't believe this thing.
Yeah.
This has come up multiple times though, the RAM on the Series S being a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Microsoft got to the point where they gave Baldur's Gate 3 that exception to where they could launch it with a feature missing from the Series S with split screen.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to do a situation of you can launch it on the Series X, but not the Series S. But I think if they were able to do that, just launch it on the Series X, I think it'd be out now. It would have already come out.
I'd have to imagine a lot of games would have probably like if it wasn't a mandate and they were like, yeah, you can choose to ship wherever, like you'd see so many games probably skip Series S. Or maybe not. I don't know. I mean, the breakdown for their sales is still like nearly 50-50. So it's,
that's the issue they're running into.
Yeah, you don't want to not ship on Series S per se.
Yeah, that's kind of a situation for them. But I mean, I actually I believe that is an issue for them because I've seen the game myself on the PS5, the base, and it's rough, man. It is. It's a rough game to run on the PS5. Like when you have it in performance mode, it doesn't look great in general, and then the frame rate's still all over the place. So yeah, it wouldn't shock me if that really, like behind the scenes, they're just desperately trying to get this thing to work with that memory limitation that they have.
Yeah, it's not at all the first time we've heard a studio just sort of openly air out grievances, which doesn't really look good for Microsoft. But the point of the story is that like there's so much back and forth on like, did Sony pay for the game? It's like, well, they're not really treating it like one. So it sounds like they legitimately can't get the game on Xbox, unfortunately. So
that's what it seems like.
Well, that's obviously that's in favor of Sony. So
to me, that's a situation where Microsoft should step in and they've worked with both of these platform owners. Will work with different companies if they need help. So to me, with how popular that game has been, this is a situation where if they haven't already, maybe they have, but you get in touch with them and you start figuring it out for the Series S to get that thing out sooner rather than later.
I'd almost assume that's what should be taking place. I don't know if they have the output to do that, considering the studio's location and sort of language barriers, but either way, get it done.
Yep.
We have another story here over the holiday period. Hideo Kojima gave an update on Physant. Do we know how to say this yet? Physant?
I think it's Physant.
I've been saying Physant.
Oh, I think it's Physant, I think.
Either way, this was one of those super early PlayStation Studio announcements, another iconic pairing where you've got Herman Halston, Kojima, shaking hands. We're doing another tactical espionage action game. And by the way, you're not going to be able to play it for who knows how long.
It's a PS6 game, let's be real.
and an end of the year tweet from Kojima discussing how 2024 went for him and Kojima Productions, talking about DS2's development, the second trailer, music production, Japanese voice acting, the TGS event. He also admitted that for OD, the Xbox title, and Physant, they were affected by the SAG-AFTRA strike. They were doing casting for the game, but that was suspended, and he hopes that they can continue doing that this year. So we do have a production update on the game, which
Just doing
is
casting now.
yeah,
Oof.
which means it's far away.
When's OD coming out then? Jeez, if we're like talking about that and Fizzit next to each other, it's like, wait a minute. What's going on here?
You'll play him at some point. It's weird. Like when Death Stranding was announced, I mean that was early, but like it's still like it shipped in 5 years or 4 years or something, if I remember correctly. So it's like
Him like shaking hands on the couch with Andrew House
yeah,
from
yeah.
them.
When he was establishing the studio up until it's shipping, like it's actually not bad. It's not one of those like 8-9 year horror stories, So
He's usually pretty quick about it. I mean, he's gonna get Death Stranding 2 out this year,
yeah.
based on what we've seen. And then maybe a couple years later he'll have OD out, and then 2 more years later he has Fizzin out. Maybe that's the path.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. Let's move on to Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. This is more of a speculation thing, but I thought it was worth discussing. This was initially researched by the YouTube channel Jonastic and then reposted on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit. Ty Martinez, an artist that specializes in cinematic horror and thriller concepts, started doing freelance work for Naughty Dog back in at least March of 2024. And then Colin Lorimer, a visual artist who worked on the game as well, posted the trailer on Instagram and had the hashtag on there for horror. So there's been some speculation and discussion surrounding if the Heretic Prophet is going to have more horror elements in the game than maybe what we've seen previously in prior Naughty Dog games. Considering The Last of Us Part 1 and 2 very much do have the underpinnings of horror elements and sequences. Yeah, I could see that happening. I don't know if it's going to be primarily horror based, but
I feel like it won't be as dark as Last of Us. I mean, I think there'll be a little bit more lighthearted aspects to it. I assume kind of the way that they set up this character and, kind of being sarcastic and stuff. I don't know. It seems it's also a bit brighter, more colorful, obviously. I would like to see them, I don't say have fun, but like be a bit more upbeat with some of the stuff. So maybe that does moments like that, but I don't know if I want to see them do just pure horror elements again.
My thinking is that like it's probably creature designs or whatever is like inhabiting this planet. Because like this artist Ty Martinez, like their portfolio is like really cool and interesting, and they've got like really like bizarre, spooky, otherworldly imagery. And I'm like, this sounds like they maybe want to like get some inspiration for some of the fauna on this planet. So I'd like to see that.
I can see them do some supernatural stuff too in there, because it's the nice thing is they're going to a planet that can kind of be separated from the reality even of that world, so they can do all kinds of weird stuff there, I'm sure. And as you mentioned, like kind of lean into some of the horror elements here and there.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, they do. They've got this sort of runway to just sort of go nutty when you're just doing sci-fi at that point. You can just.
I think that's the thing I'm more interested in, is to see Naughty Dog get away from it, because Last of Us, while there are technically like supernatural elements kind of to it, they try to explain it in science and stuff with like the spores and those kind of things. I wouldn't mind seeing them just get a little out there, be video. It's okay for a video game to be a video game kind of thing. It doesn't all have to make sense and like go down to a molecular level and be all sciencey. It's like, hey, you know what? Maybe there's a ghost. I don't know, but it's fine. Whatever. Video game.
Yeah, maybe there's ghosts. I don't know. Maybe
like they can do that kind of stuff. You're allowed to have fun with it.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, I want them to explore that. If there's anything I want out of that game, it's like we don't have to be grounded in reality. We can like start doing goofy shit again.
Yeah.
Let's move on to PS Portal users are spending more time on their PlayStation 5. This is from Stephen Totillo's newsletter, GameFile. He was speaking with Hiromi Wakai, SIE's Vice President of Product Management. Apparently, the most popular time of the day that Portal owners are playing on the handheld is 9 p.m., which is 1 hour later than the peak time from playing on PS5 consoles. So the direct implication here is people are playing on the console, and then they get more time out of the console by then playing on the Portal slightly after that playtime, which I thought was, I guess, interesting to a degree. It's sort of fitting in that niche of exactly why they made this thing.
I mean, that makes sense. You like the PS5 gets turned off, and then you go, or the TV gets changed or turned off, and then you go to the Portal. So it just extends beyond the console, the TV. That's what they were going for, as you mentioned. Like, that's the idea of the Portal, is to still keep you engaged if the PS5 is not accessible directly.
Yep. It's fascinating to see how I don't want to say how much better it's doing than we thought it was doing, because I think like lifetime sales for this thing is probably in like the low million ballpark,
Yeah,
millions, I should say. So they're probably 2-3 million or something. But it's like people thought this thing was going to do what, 50,000 and die. It's like, not really.
I have played my Portal though, like in bed and stuff. Like when I'm gonna go to bed, I'll take it with me, and it works well, even though I'm on like the second floor from my PS5. Good enough to do things like Metaphor, for example. I've tried some faster paced games. Like I did try Call of Duty at one point, and that was not working. I was like, I'm always behind the reticule, and but like Metaphor worked fine. Dragon Quest 3 HD2D worked fine. And there were some platformers that were okay. So it's I mean it's a good option. It is to play off the TV in bed, stuff like that.
Hmm. And we also have a separate game file report from Steven again. This time he was speaking with Corey Gassaway, the vice president of PlayStation product, games, and player experiences. And we also learned that the updated Welcome Hub on PS5 was the result of an internal hackathon. It was designed by a small, passionate team, and their idea won and it moved forward. So this was partially motivated by that, but also the metric that the way players are behaving with their console when they shut it down at night. As in, we found out 50% of PS5 owners do a hard shutdown, and the other 50% use rest mode. Which, if you use rest mode, then typically you're going to be, rest moding on a suspended game. You turn the console back on. That means you're looking back at the game where you left off. But in this circumstance, because they realize that half of the owners are doing a hard shutdown, that means when they do a fresh boot, they're going to be seeing the landing page on the console, which is either like the last game that you did open, or in the US, it was the Explore icon. So the thought process there is, well, let's make this landing page where it's, useful, has some, widgets and things on there that you can utilize and get some extra information out of. And that's what we learned from the game file report.
Right now, is your PS5 in rest mode or is it turned off?
I exclusively use rest mode.
Okay, mine's in rest mode as well. You can't really see it easily, but right here's a little yellow. The Pro does that, right? It's not up here anymore. It's like down here.
I know, it's the other side.
It's yellow right now. But yeah, I've and the one downstairs is in rest mode too. I started leaving it in rest mode more and more now. The PlayStation Portal, of course, wakes it up, but I for a long time I would turn it off completely.
You were one of those, huh?
I was. So, and then I switched over to a rest mode. Now I'm a rest mode person across the board. And mostly it's just for updates, downloads. Like I started noticing that if I had it off and I turn it on after even sometimes a few hours, updates would just start popping. Yep. Like, what is happening? Yeah.
Yeah. The metric's fascinating. I mean, I'm not surprised that it's high, but it's like 50%. Wow. I mean, I get it. Everyone's like, it's just their thing. Like, no, it turns off. Why does it have to be in rest mode? Like, I don't. Well, one, like remote play is not used nearly as often as people think it is. So obviously you're missing out on remote play booting, but since most people don't use that doesn't matter. But it's a low power mode. It does handle software updates for you and things like that. The problem is that if there's a power outage, then you turn the console back on.
It gets mad at you.
Yeah. It's like the running meme.
What are you doing? Wait, what? Like, but it's not your fault because it power went out.
Yeah, I mean the console. It's like that message is so weird to me. It's like I'm sure they do that just to like tell people, hey, don't shut down the console like this, even though they obviously didn't mean to. It's more of a CYA situation, like just cover your ass, treat the audience like they're idiots, and let them know don't turn the console off like that. But it's like 99.9% of the time, it rebuilds the database. It checks for scars, and it's all right. It boots up fine after that. So I don't know. I'm surprised it's like that high.
You think people are afraid to put it in the rest mode?
I think it's just like habit, like we're so used to turning things off completely. Although I don't know, you would think maybe consumer habits would change a bit because like we never turn off phones anymore. Most people don't turn off phones. Like,
that's true. They silence them.
Yeah. Put them to sleep. What the thing I'll say though, I'm surprised that the Welcome Hub was a byproduct of a hackathon. You're telling me like this, like one of the coolest things, one of the most usable features this console has had, and you're telling me it it almost didn't happen because like a group of people had to win a hackathon contest internally. What the hell are we doing around here? How is
I
this
mean,
not like
yeah.
are you shitting me? We almost didn't get this. It had to be one.
Yeah.
Moments like that is where you're constantly reminded that there are oftentimes very passionate people at big companies that know what people want, but they are not able to push through whatever sort of politics are going on in that corporate structure. Like, oh, team X, Y, and Z can't build feature X because senior leadership isn't convinced that people would use it. I hear
Right.
that. I hear this a lot. And it's always like, it's so frustrating when you know there are people that work at these companies. They know what you want, and sometimes they can't deliver.
Yeah, it does feel kind of separate though from the rest of the system when you go to it. Because like I remember you mentioned the change customizing it would only customize that part, but not like the rest of the PS5. And I don't know, for some reason the Welcome Hub, it just feels like it's its own incubated thing when I turn it on and go to it. So it kind of makes sense that it was like, oh, there's a hackathon thing that we didn't necessarily plan from the beginning. You know what else? I wouldn't be shocked if this PlayStation 30th anniversary thing was part of that hackathon too, because this thing does feel like it's also kind of just overlaid on the system, which we still have it. So hey,
Yeah,
that's
we do still have it. I'm very
that
surprised by that.
it is funny though that the idea of I guess just people there, developers were like, what does the thing need? Oh yeah, a welcome screen. Yeah, that's right.
Well, like
Here's a thought.
that's the thing. Like only in the US we had the Explore tab, which the Explore tab isn't really a great landing page. It's just for a while it's just advertisements. Anywhere else, it's just your games. Like it will
Right.
only show your games, or the store, or PS Plus. But I don't know. That was, I think, pretty fascinating to learn. Moving on to our next story here, we have PSN suspensions for sending links on PSN. So this was posted
I
on the
like the intrigue there. And like the whole like turn and the
yeah. Well, you got to sell the
pause.
story. You got to sell the story. This was posted on the PS5 subreddit, claiming that sending google.com URLs on PSN messaging is now breaching the code of conduct on PSN. This user claimed that they received 3 emails where it specifically says sharing malicious URLs, including those that may harm another player, is against the code of conduct, and further offenses may result in a suspension on PSN. Which that's probably been in the terms of service for like a very long time, but since the console came out, it was never like enforceable. Because like one of the PS5 tips here, most people know, is that like there's no web browser on the console that you're meant to use. It has one. You're not meant to use it. It's not a feature like PS3, Vita, PSP, or PS4 in this case. But if you want to use it, like the easiest way was sending like a URL on PSN. You just type google.com to somebody. And the weird thing is, like, the system turns it into a link that when you hit it, it does bring up the browser and you can use it. You have to do it that way though, because once the browser's opened, it doesn't let you like open the web address. So you very much cannot use it in the manner that you would think you can use it. You have to just start from a search engine and then try and use it from there. But it like once it's opened, you can leverage basic console features. You can pin it to the side of the screen and get picture in picture where you've got a web browser or even a YouTube video going and you can play a game. So it's always been a pretty known thing that you can do this.
Have you
And
done a
now,
video on that? Like just
oh,
showcasing it?
while ago. Yeah, it's in like my tips and tricks videos. I that video's got like millions of views. I've got to be one of the number one places how people found out about it. And it's like it's always been well known for years, right?
Mhm.
Now, and I did test this. Yeah, they don't let you do this shit anymore. So if you're on PSN, if you send a web address, and it's very automated. Some still go through google.com. If you send it, immediately it says deleted by PlayStation safety. Doesn't work. You can't do Google, you can't do like Bing or DuckDuckGo, or you like most search engines, dead. I put in Amazon. Amazon still worked. You could like bring up Amazon, you could bring up Facebook. So it's like if there's like a URL that's outside of like the big top 20 or something on the internet, like you can probably launch it, but they do stop the URL sending now, and they will send you those follow-up emails, which I did get. They do not want you doing this anymore.
Ryan's a fugitive. He's like on the run right now.
Yeah, I was in
I'm
trouble.
dying. Ryan's gonna go to like high security jail. PlayStation URL swapping. What
Yeah.
happens if you use a redirect service of like an uncommon like dot XYZ or whatever? What does it still go through them?
I didn't try that.
Oh,
You,
there's another
you,
video right there for you. You're
you,
welcome.
you could be the guinea pig if you want.
Yeah, these companies, so funny. Sony in particular is like they're like terrified of that web browser, man. They want no part of that. Free BSD has been beaten up. That's like its kryptonite. Seems to be the web browser. It's just every time a system, PS3, the PSP, Vita, whatever, gets hacked, it's through the web browser. It's
Yeah.
it's coming. Like I'm actually I'm working right now on hacking a PS3 and doing a whole video on that because it's the scene for that is incredible. It's awesome. But it's gotten to the point legitimately where it's like type this URL in, hit this button, and your system's hacked, and that's it. And it's like, oh wow, that's where we are now.
Yep.
And free BSD is shared across all these basic. I mean, it's basically what Sony's been running forever now. So I mean, if I was them, I would be terrified of the web browser too, because once that thing gets cracked and opened up like that, and it's easy to where you just go to URL, you don't have to do all this weird stuff where you got USBs moving between computers and what firmware am I on? That's the entry point. It's just they gotta send Ryan to jail now because of it. So
that's it. You said it. It's a vulnerable place. That's why they don't let you use it anymore. Although I still find it funny that they clearly installed one on the console because they want to use it for basic product support pages. They can't just bake that into the console.
Right. Or I guess technically, I don't know if I haven't taken my PS5 to like hotel or something. I guess it needs the web browser to launch to do the sign in there for those things.
Yeah. I've never done that, but I'm sure that's what would happen probably.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. You can't you're probably no longer able to contribute to Pornhub's console traffic report, because I think PlayStation was still like number one the last time they put that out there, which is so funny because now like how are they still doing that on PS5? Oh, like people are going out of their way to send links on PSN so they can still open it. Something else, huh?
Man.
Let's let's move on to this Famitsu interview with Herman Holst. Pretty big interview, a lot of questions back and forth. The one that caught a lot of attention out of that, though, was a question discussing Astrobot. So Famitsu mentioned that because there's so many characters in there, people are asking for the revival of certain IP. So when asked directly about utilizing dormant properties, Herman said, and I quote here, "Our extensive IP portfolio is an important asset for PlayStation, and as part of our efforts to strengthen our portfolio, we continually explore opportunities to leverage our legacy IP as well as develop new franchises." Now, I do want to add here that VGC's Andy Robinson touched on this during the recent podcast episode, and he said he knows of at least a couple games that they're working on that could be described as deep cut old IP stuff. Also saying that they're probably looking to do smaller scale titles to fill out the portfolio going forward. So I am happy about this news.
Well, yeah, once I saw this, I was like, oh, Ryan's probably got like a list that he's ready to turn in right now.
No, that's the thing, right? I'm always a realist with this stuff. My thing was like, okay, they would probably always give that answer. They're always continually looking at IP. They're always evaluating and leveraging IP. Actions speak louder than words. The actions they did recently was the 2022 relaunch with the PS Plus Classics, the Freedom Wars thing, which they're licensing out IP. So I think they've already, in a way, shown a new commitment to leveraging older properties. Now, as far as like what Andy's talking about, maybe going more in the veins of like doing new releases or something, maybe modern ports. Hey, whatever it is, sign me up. Let's do more of it. I think we all know why they should be doing this.
They mentioned Fat Princess, Ryan.
Oh, Fat Princess. I love that game. It's so adorable and stupid.
Yeah, once I heard that, I was like, yeah, this is Ryan's kind of news right here. What about like them going to get MotorStorm?
Well, here's the thing, man. If it's a smaller scale title, then I don't know that'd be very good, unless we're talking about porting MotorStorm RC, which in that case, what the hell are we doing here? I mean, I played MotorStorm RC, got the platinum, but a full-blown MotorStorm is going to need a pretty big budget. I would like to see it get a big budget.
I was trying to think of what they would be referring to. A
I'm
Gravity Rush?
Well, I'm thinking like, yeah, like a lot of, honestly, the deep cut here is like maybe some older Japan studio stuff and just
Vib Ribbon?
and just, well, Vib Ribbon, hey, maybe, but like, let's port it. Just get it on PS4, PS5. Just do modern ports. If we're talking about like outside of the standard emulation stuff, then yeah.
Oh, okay. So like we have Wild Arms already through emulation.
Yeah.
Would they reboot it or do something like that?
What would you consider that smaller scale?
That's true. I like everyone's like Legend of Dragoon. I'm like that. Okay. I feel like that'd be pretty expensive to do now because they'd probably have to change the play style to be like an action RPG. I don't think it would be a turn based anymore.
That'd be a huge undertaking, assuming they do remake it like that. Yeah. It's tough. You got to think about that sort of like a middle ground, I guess.
Patapon.
Well, Patapon, what is bad about that is that the original creators went to kickstart their own spiritual successor, and so that's already kind of ongoing. That's, if anything, that's annoying because it's like, well, if you guys were going to do more Patapon, like why could you not work this out a little bit sooner? Let them take the IP back and make a new entry. So.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe it's kind of like, remember you mentioned the whole thing that's going on with Freedom Wars?
Yeah.
That's out soon, but that was like, hey, you can use it if you want. I mean, that'd be considered a deep cut, I assume.
Yeah, it depends on your definition of like deep cut, but like I would think it's more of that because this stuff isn't going to be in-house. They're going to give this off to another studio. Right. So I don't know if it would be the exact same conditions of like, here's the IP, we're full-blown licensing out to a different publisher, and they're like also choosing to ship it on Switch and PC and, you know, all like day and date. I don't know if it's like that, or if this would be a little bit more in the traditional sense of an agreement where it's like a different studio doing it, but you are going to be shipping only on our console, maybe also PC at the same time, or whatever the condition is. But it feels more like a proper PlayStation exclusive that they're overseeing. I would assume that's what Andy's referring to.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to take a guess because they have such an extensive library of stuff they've forgotten about, and how much of a budget do they want to throw at it? Like, we're not getting, I assume, a new Infamous, a new Resistance, anything like that. So, yeah,
it's tough to say for like smaller scale titles. In my head, I'm just thinking like ports and remasters. Unless and if it's a new entry, it would be a new entry in something similar to, as you say, like Patapon, Fat Princess, or Loco Roco, maybe an art style kind of game that is it doesn't ever need to command a crazy high budget, but maybe that's where you'll see a new entry out of those games.
You're gonna be doing this to evaluate to see if these things could work even outside of just games, because they have this big push right now, series and TV series and movies currently.
Yeah, probably. I mean, if anything ends up landing better than they thought it would, it goes even more from there. There's like audience turnover too, you know, like they're carefully looking at Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and what are they gravitating towards, and they don't know any of these old properties. For all they know,
we're the olds now, Ryan.
We are the olds, and for all we know, like there's like a new audience that these games can be exposed to in a bigger way than you know what we did for these games back then. But hey, I'll go on record. We're the reason these things died. We didn't buy enough. Why didn't you buy 20 copies?
Buy 4 copies?
Why didn't you buy 20 copies of Patapon 3? Why? I know you. How many copies of the Other Ocean Medieval remake did you buy, John? And be honest.
1.
Unfucking believable.
It's up there. It's up there right now.
So that's good news. We'll see what happens.
Maybe that's a good comparison as Medieval, that remake.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know what the budget was for that game. It sold $500,000, which is pretty decent.
I mean, it's a big. If you buy it physically nowadays, it's a big deal. So I bought it physically. So that's 2 points.
Let's move on to. So Famitsu had another interview, right? So they spoke with Herman Hulst, CEO of the Studio Business Group. They also spoke with Hideaki Nishino, the CEO of the Platform Business Group. He shared a few things. The topic of cross-gen came up, how PS4 is still around 11 years later. So he was asked about this being the same prospect for PS5, and Nishino responded with, and I quote here, We think that the PS5 will be around for a long time, just like the PS4. However, I don't think it's right to delay the release of the next product that incorporates new technology because it will be around for a long time. The timing of introducing new hardware is related to the timeline of technological evolution and the timeline for us to implement it. Therefore, I think it is important to provide new things while playing the ones that are currently in operation and to expand in total. Uh, Basically, he's saying this thing is going to do exactly we're the same timeline here. We're going to release PSX, and yes, PS5 will be around for a while. Is that a shock to anybody?
No, but the thing that, I mean, the PS4 could still be around when the PS6 is announced.
Possibly. I would only be inclined to say that PS4 would likely be not completely gone, but it's like at a certain point, even if the console is relevant as far as like performance and what you can release games, like you can still keep making games for it. If people aren't on it, they're not on it. Like enough people are gonna like. It's already to a point where like, God, what was that one story? It was like something where Sega said they wanted to keep releasing on last gen, and I think Matt Pescatella said like offhandedly on Blue Sky, he's like, yeah, we'll see how that works out for them, because he's implying that like he's seeing PS4 sales numbers for like on a game by game basis. He's like he's saying like it's just not the audience isn't there. So like at a certain point, PS4 will simply die because there's no audience.
Yeah, man, we have some games already announced for 2026 for the PS4. So it's, I mean, and the sports games, I assume, will probably run it until 2027.
Yeah, I mean, those might go for a while.
The new wrestling game got announced, and it has PS4 right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that's the thing that's tough. If this generation or the PS4 generation is still around now, while using a mechanical hard drive, which I still think is the biggest difference right now between the PS4 and the PS5, mechanical hard drive to SSD. If you go back and play that now, by the way, those load times you really notice now. You really do. You're like, what? Oh yeah, that's right. We did have to sit here for a while. You would pick up your phone and kind of like look around through messages and stuff when you're waiting for the game to start or something. So the SSD being the like default thing now, the PS5 will still be relevant probably longer than the PS4 is now, comparing it to the PS5. So PS6 and let's say 2028, I wouldn't be shocked if we were talking about the PS5 in like 2034 or something.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I would imagine that PS5 is going to have longer legs than even PS4 is having right now, just because of that, and the diminishing return aspect, which is very clearly going on. But I guess what's noteworthy is him saying like, yeah, PlayStation 6 is coming, and it's on us to propose it in a manner that is like, here's why you should buy PS6. Like technologically, it's on us to propose a good product to you that's worth buying in the face of PS5 still being around.
It's now in development. It takes, they usually do it about 4 years before we're there. We have the AMD partnership announced, Amethyst. So, I mean, at this point, they're answering questions of, yeah, we're rolling. Like we're not going to sit around now because the PS5, the PS4 is lasting a while. We're just going to keep rolling, let the market decide. And I must wonder, how long do they let these things stack up? Because eventually they'll have a handheld, we assume.
Mm-hmm.
You can't still have that. I mean, eventually you got to be like, okay, guys, the PS4 is cut off. Like, we're done with that because now we have to support all these platforms outside of it.
I don't know. I could see them having PS4 be in this sort of like similar state to like what Vita was in its final years. It's like, we don't manufacture it anymore, but like if you want to publish a game on it, like, yeah, we still have like the back end site, and you could still do it. I don't see why they couldn't, in theory, let that keep going.
Right. But I mean, I get it why people will be watching these shows, and if that PS4 logo pops up next to the PS5, there are some groans in the crowd. They're like, oh, still.
Yeah, but if a game is not, I don't get that, because if a game is not like really pushing the boundaries of like visual fidelity, how is PlayStation 4 impeding on that?
I think there's the concern that the game isn't fully taking advantage of the PS5 because it still has to work on the PS4. Still, like, how many years after the PS4 released? back in 2013, and it's like, hey, we're still with this thing. 12 years later now in 2025.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If it's a game that is not pushing the boundaries of like,
oh yeah, it's like an
what
indie
we
game or something. Yeah.
Well, but not even that. I mean, there's some like I don't know. I don't know much about the wrestling games, but is that really the kind of title where you think it's being that bogged down by like lower end hardware? Would that be
The
fair
game
to say?
struggles to work at all. So yes.
Really? On new
less
hardware?
platforms, please. Less platforms.
Well,
Yes.
on new hardware, you mean? It struggles?
Just in general, the game, like if you play online, half the time it breaks. And
Oh,
half the time
really?
it works. Oh yeah. So in my mind, I'm thinking, you know what? They need to just focus in on so many platforms, and instead they got Xbox One, PS4, no crossplay, by the way. So it's all segmented and stuff, and it's like, guys, come on, you gotta focus down, figure out a Xbox Series, PS5, PC. You're good. Just focus on those. So that's actually a case where I'm like, I don't know if they're spread too thin, or they're trying to work all these logistical things out in the background for this to function. But I can't imagine it's helping them. And they haven't exactly had a strong history of high quality efforts since, was it 2K20 was so bad they had to take a year off. And then people got fired and stuff. They broke up with the studio. It was a whole thing. So some of these studios, like that wrestling game, those entries, it's like, you know what? Maybe we don't need that PS4 version if it means the PS5 version will be better because you can just focus on that.
No, that's fair. I mean, you make a good point if we're talking about. Well, I'm guessing they offer Pro modes too. So we're talking about what 4 Pro, 5 Pro,
Yeah,
Series
right.
S, X, X1. So that's a very fair point. But broadly speaking, a lot of games, can't imagine PS4 is hurting it that bad. But
no, not all of them, but there are times where I wonder, like, what if they didn't have to account for the mechanical drive and they could have just been like all SSD across the board for development?
That's true. It's very true. Well, it was always the PS5 dream we were sold in 2020. But then it was also like, oh man, we're kind of hitting a diminishing return point here, huh?
We are. But like the SSD was, I think, game changing. And I think it's so good now that people forget what it was like to run off of a spinning plate that would take load, like sometimes a while to load. We'd be sitting there for minutes on end sometimes.
Yeah.
And now it's like, if it takes longer than 10 seconds, we're like, what's going on here?
Oh no,
is this thing stuck?
I lose my shit. No, I think completely people overlook like the one of the best benefits of this generation. For as much cross-gen bitching as there's been, I'm like, well, if you bought a PS5 day one, I don't know if you really have that much ground to stand on here as far as like you were immediately enjoying next-gen benefits. That was the load times. They're gone. Even with cross-gen, you were getting benefits right off rip.
Can you imagine the generation coming in now and the PS5 and the Xbox Series is their first system and they never experienced any load times prior to that?
Oh boy.
That's crazy, isn't it? You know what the thing is? I thought about this is something I've considered a lot in like 15 years when kids now who are like 5 or 6 or something, and they grow up and they're in their 20s and they look back on that time when they were kids, what are they going to look back on as I can't believe we had to do that? Like whether it's the tube TV that was color or black and white. I had one of those in my room back in the day. Like what are they going to look back on and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we had to do this back then.
That's a good question. That's a really good question.
Load times would be one. It's like these things had to read off of a CD. You put games on DVDs? What is this? That Blu-ray, that old Blu-ray format? You really did that?
That old Blu-ray format.
Hey, it's old now.
Some kind of
like those kind of things. Like you had to put the disc in and it would spin and read it. When you go to turn off your computer, it said it's now safe to turn off your computer. What does that mean?
Some sort of Reddit post in like 20 years, and it's like, I found my dad's old Blu-ray collection of PS4 games. And it's like, oh Jesus Christ.
I think one might be that we have to plug in and charge our phones for more than 30 seconds. I think in the future, it'll get to the point where you plug in a phone and it charges immediately. And I think there are some breakthroughs already seen. I think that's going to be a thing. It'll be consumer level in like 15 years. And it'll be this weird thing that we had to plug our devices in, any electronics, and wait for hours at times to charge it. And that could include the handhelds for PlayStation or Nintendo, or cell phones, or controllers, anything.
Fast charging. Yeah. It's a good point. I
It's
don't
like
know.
a thought experiment for all the listeners out there.
Yeah, I don't know. My head's not in the right place to think about like what would a young person now look back on and think, damn, that shit was crazy.
Your bookshelf behind you.
That's like relevant now.
All the games. I mean, think about it. People, when the iPod came out, they were like, you walk around with all these CDs or you have all those vinyls. I got it right here on this iPod. That's all I need. Thousands of songs.
See, growing up, I was never really a CD person. I kind of like went into the digital age right away. So for that medium.
You're one of those immediate PS5 owners, huh?
Just no. I was an immediate iPod owner. Never really had CDs that much. Well, actually, to preface that, I was a LimeWire steal everything kind of person.
Oh man, just admitting that out in the open.
Hey,
I'm just gonna find you.
What's it? Limitations there? Statute of limitations? Try and get me. Well, since we're reminiscing here, it's a good segue to our next story. Implicit Conversions has confirmed PS3 emulation intentions. Folks, sound the alarm bells. The company that Sony contracts out for classic emulation on PS4, PS5. This is the company that Sony doesn't do it in-house. They contract this out. It's their Syrup emulation engine. And on their site, they have a roadmap where they openly talk about the engine, features that are released, things they're working on, things they're dreaming about. And so under the dreaming about category, it's right there in plain view, PS3 emulation. And then they, like a few days later, confirmed this on Twitter. They just said straight up, like, yes, we're looking into PS3. So a few caveats. It says dreaming about. I would assume the obvious implication here is it's not something that they're actively doing right now. Just looking into it. I also want to clarify this because every time PS3 emulation stories come up, I'm like the bad guy here where I have to like tell people like, no, it's not happening, or this is why it's not happening, or that rumor is not credible, or you guys are looking way too much into this. And so the thing that's always been true for years. Every time I cover this on LTPS, the shit is not happening. Everything so far has been a false prophet. This, folks, is the first actual real thing that we can claim is indeed happening. Just so we're all on this, like this has never been rumored before. Any rumor in the past was not a rumor. That's somebody throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. This is the first real one. And I can't say I'm too shocked, although my only surprise here is that due to the nature of how annoying PS3, you would almost assume like maybe Sony internally would maybe be involved, as in they've got source code, they know the console better than anybody. Like it's, maybe this would be happening by a few engineers internally in Japan would be doing this.
Right.
But the thing about implicit conversions is that they are independent. Like for them, this makes sense to do because they don't just work with Sony. I assume Sony is their biggest client, but they approach other studios. Their whole pitch is like, hey, we have this engine. We can bring back your classic game. If you don't have source code, don't worry about it. We can get your game restored. We can also put multiplayer into it. We can add trophies to it. Like that's their model. And so it still, for them, makes sense to do this at a certain point since they can sell it to other publishers and, of course, Sony. But I don't know. I mean, where are you at here, John? We finally have something on paper that we can really talk about.
Yeah, no, my thought on this, looking at it, is this is them just kind of investing in their Syrup engine to make it more robust and more available for, I assume, just a large number of PS3 games that would benefit from going through their setup, their SDK and everything to then go to modern platforms. But the side effect would indeed be, hey, it's available if you want it, Sony. Like, we're going to go ahead and build this out. And there is a market there to be like, hey, there's plenty of PS3 and 360 games that we always talk about that are stuck through licensing or whatever it is, right? Where they can't get it done necessarily through Sony or Microsoft. But if they say go to Sega, and they're like, oh yeah, we would like to do Jet Set Radio Future, and we'd like to release it on everything. It's like, okay, yeah, let's get that done with the licensing. We'll take care of the emulation and stuff, like those kind of things. But for PS3 and 360, you then go to that. And the PS3, the thing with that though is, I don't know if they're going to build a catch-all or if it would be kind of a game by game basis, because that's always been the hang up, right? Is that it's difficult to get an emulator to work across the board. We see it even with what's been impressive is just RPCS3, RPCSX3. It's
that's RPCS3.
Or yeah, it has issues at times with many games, and they've been working on this thing for a long time. It's such a complicated platform to still develop for. Now, I would like to think that the future is implicit conversions figures it out enough to where Sony is on board with them, and we get to a point where, hey, here's the PS6, here's PS3 games now going in natively. You're not streaming them. I think this is a way for them to kind of maybe even entice Sony a bit by taking some initiative on their end.
I would agree. My speculation here is that, maybe it would be something where Sony does like send engineers in and they work on this collaboratively, or maybe they're just very forthcoming and they say like, yeah, we'll give you a source code or something. Or I don't want to say too much. It's just like, I can see that being a timeline here. Either they do it completely on their own independently, and they get something usable and they can start selling it, or like Sony also, because there's a very clear upside. I think Sony is their biggest client. So as far as like where their most consistent work comes from, like you would think that lines up, and because they're dreaming about it, yeah, this means it's very far away. As I've always said, like if this comes, it's going to be as in like, if people want this to happen tomorrow, it would have had to be in development 7-8 years ago. That's, yep. And if it hasn't been happening, like, guess what? Start the clock now. Now, I'm not saying it's going to take that long, but it'll be a while.
So I think the PS5 can handle the PS3 games. I think the PS4 is still the hang up. Either way. So
PS4 is not happening. No, that's not even
no. But like, that's the thing. I think even if this happens, say in 2032 or 2031, or it's a while off, you could still see it be on the PS5. Like we see these implicit conversions games on PS4. So they could definitely do that.
Have you played a PS2 game on the PS4?
I haven't. How is it?
It buckles.
Oh, interesting.
I don't want to. Okay, just to clarify, if you do rewind, it like frame drops pretty hard. Like you go for a rewind, it'll do it, but it's like there's a very obvious like the frame is stuck, and then it will like load in that save state from the however far back you rewind. And there's an actual setting in their emulator menu where it's I forget what the setting's actually called, but basically it's like enhanced performance or enhanced features or something. You can turn them off, as in you can choose to turn off rewind on the PS4 version to get better performance.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, yeah, there's no fucking way in hell PS4 is getting PS3 games. I'm still inclined to say PS5 can probably do a good amount of PS3 games, not all of them. There are some that are just way too complex and lean too into sell. I could be wrong. Maybe they'll actually extract a lot out of it, but I always think about the business side of this, which is like, if the game is not like fully playable start to finish without, massive issues that would show up in QA, like it has to be like super solid, and you don't really want to ship something that's like the same 720p PS3 game. Like you want to spruce it up a bit. I'm sure it could do absolutely like a number of PS3 games. I'm not sure if it like the whole console library is on the table here for PS5.
I have to imagine though, with implicit conversions, that PS2 contract that they have with Sony is just an extremely stable one for them. So yeah, I would start dreaming about PS3 immediately, because that could get them on the hook for the PS6 then.
Yeah, 100%. It's their model. So good on them. Hey, I'm a big fan. They get some people in the space have given them a lot of shit for their emulation, but it's like they've had that rough patch. Like they've made a lot of improvements to the 2022 classic game since then. Like the NTSC switching is in there now, more controller options, more presets, trying to address the weird ghosting issues.
Yeah.
And then obviously now doing PS2 games, like, and then the resolution boost the PS2 games got. It's just like when you have to monetize emulation, it's always going to look worse than like what hobbyists do on their free time, but they're getting there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just nice to have them available natively. PS2 library. Next up, let's get PS3 going.
Let's get it going. And who knows if we'll eventually have a day where on Click R3, we can talk about new PS3 games finally coming back.
Do you think that could be a big push for a big selling point for the PS6 when let's say they introduce it? This is all done. And they're like, you can play every generation of PlayStation on this hardware.
In what way? Because like the pipe dream for people is like, oh, can I insert a PS1 disc and play it?
There won't
like,
be a disc drive. No disc drives.
Yeah,
nope. It's all gone.
No,
you can play the ones they'll sell you.
You can say that now. The PlayStation Store the PlayStation Store has PS1, 2, PS3 remasters, 4, 5, 6, or not 6, PSP. They're all on there. If we're like getting
stuff.
If we're getting technical, there is one game from every PlayStation generation on PSN right now.
None of the streaming stuff.
That's what the 7th gen has, like a ton of remasters. It's still getting remasters. I want PlayStation 3 emulation, no doubt. And there's a lot of games that are still stuck on that generation. But let's not ignore that, like, PS3 to 4, like, dude, we saw so many ports. So many ports from, like, yeah. A lot of those games are playable. So we just got to get the remaining ones, and emulation might get us there.
Yep, I think so.
Let's move on to CES 2025. I almost said 2024. I almost fucked
it's
up.
Not like you're about to go in that direction.
CES 2025. CES historically, it's a consumer electronics show. What's funny is like CES for Sony, it's the Sony group. Like they talk about their cameras and shit like that. It wasn't normally a big place for PlayStation stuff. In recent years, we now have PlayStation show up there. This year, though, it was like mostly PlayStation productions, I want to say. It was like
that was close. They almost announced some games.
It was mostly PlayStation productions. Like prior CES announcements, like we got the logo, the PS5 logo.
I remember that. That was a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Jim Ryan flew in for that.
We had that PSVR 2 stuff. We saw Horizon Call of the Mountain for the first time. So
games.
Sometimes it happens. In this case, though, I hope you like TV and movies. So first up, Horizon Zero Dawn is getting a movie now in collaboration with Columbia Pictures. I would presume this is because the Netflix show is dead and we have to do something with Horizon. I'm happy. I wanted a movie. I didn't want a show, dude. Zero Dawn deserves a movie. Give me a movie.
People are so confused by this, by the way. I see it all the time. Whenever Horizon gets an announcement, people on like Twitter are like, is this an industry plant? How does this keep happening?
Stupid. Because the game sold. Stupid. Moving on. Helldivers 2 is also getting a film adaptation. Is this surprising? Is this shocking?
It's a take on Starship Troopers, the movie. So now they're going from the game back to their inspiration of a movie. So it could definitely work because I assume they would have kind of that humor baked in.
There's like no details on this one. It's just they just like announced it. So Helldivers 2. And then The Last of Us HBO season 2 officially coming.
That's gonna be fun. Officially
coming this April, and they showed a new trailer as well. And a little side note here: Collider did a separate report that season 3 is already in pre-production, with filming set to begin in the summer of this year. So that's also coming too.
Okay, so I wonder if season 2 is just going to cover part of Last of Us Part 2 then, because that game did go on for a bit. Like it's technically a longer game than I expected when I played through it. I wonder if that's getting broken into 2 seasons.
That's been confirmed.
We already know the cliffhanger.
we don't know if they're breaking it down. They said it'll be more than a season, so we don't know if they're gonna do 2 or 3. I guess once we see this season, that's gonna pretty much dictate right away exactly how much they've covered and how much more is left. So we'll see.
You know, they're putting a driving range in near me. I take up golfing after the season finale.
All right, John. So there's that, and then next up is Ghost of Tsushima Legends is getting an anime adaptation with Takanobu Mizuno. They will direct the series at Kamikaze Dogo, with Jen Urobuchi writing the story composition. The anime will be in collaboration with Aniplex and release on Crunchyroll in 2027. Tsushima Legends, by the way, the separate like multiplayer thing that Tsushima had. That's getting anime.
This could be pretty cool because I assume they're doing that so that they can have original characters. Like they don't have to go with, oh, it's gonna be Jin or it's gonna be this new character from Ghost Yote. They can just kind of make up characters and create an original story for it. And I assume have an awesome art style similar to what we see with the games themselves now. So that's actually one I saw and I was like, okay, that could be really fun to see how that turns out. You know, I did want to say something else about Last of Us, Ryan. The series. It feels like there's kind of an issue there because if they're just going along mostly with the plot of the game, what happens when they get to the end of the plot of Last of Us Part 2?
Well, they've said they're not going to go beyond the games. This is what they've said.
Yeah, so it seems like they're almost done then.
Well, like I said, that we know for a fact that the second game is not going to be covered in one season. So it's going to be at least 2, as in they're going to go till at least 3. The big question mark is if there's going to be 4, which 4 would imply that it's still part 2. So season 2, once it comes out and we can see how much of the plot they cover and how much is left over, that will determine what they probably end up doing for 3 and if there will be a 4. But they've said they're not going to go past the games. We'll see if they stick to that.
Means Last of Us Part 3 needs to get out at some point.
I don't know if it's going to be on that same timeline, but that's what they say.
Cross-gen, PS5, PS6 launch game. Go ahead, do it.
Hey, you got to figure Heretic Prophet is, the thing that we'll get next. Then maybe Part 3 is after that. So
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
It could be like still very far away, but if they do want to stick to the source material of the games, then maybe it's not totally impossible that they do that.
The ratings for that Last of Us show were just incredible, though. So
they were.
You want to keep going with it, but if the game's lagging behind, you're like, all right, let's get Last of Us Part 3 out there, or feed us the plot now, so maybe they can actually kind of release alongside of the game. That would be an interesting thing to see.
Oh, I do not think that would happen.
You don't think so?
No, I don't know. Sony and Naughty Dog are so protective of this property, and it's just so like on a pedestal to them. I don't know if they would want to even humor that. You'd almost think it's like, this is Naughty Dog's thing. They get to sort of dictate when they're ready to tell that story and tell it on their terms. And I could be wrong though.
Be worried that some people would get felt like they'd be able to record some of the stuff happening. You know, people sometimes find their way on set, or people like drones have flown over. People have flown drones to record things that are happening down there with actors and stuff. I mean, we'd have legit film leaks or TV series leaks that would then translate over to gaming leaks. That'd be weird.
Yeah, like that's one of like many issues I think with that possibility. I mean, some would argue that like a lot of games nowadays, like the issue is like, oh, with printing discs, like that's how leaks happen because a disc will get out too soon. It's like,
right.
So I think there's a lot of issues there. But the other CES announcement that we did get was the Sony Immersive Entertainment Concept, which is a proof of concept stage currently. It's not like this thing that's happening right off the top, but basically there's this like live demo where you can enter into this like box of giant full high-res crystal LED displays, and you're placed into the world of The Last of Us as this sort of like real life entertainment thing you can do. So they're combining immersive audio and haptics and atmospherics and even scent to create a sense of presence. And then you can use like a gun controller to shoot and aim at the infected in the demo sequence. It's like a real in-person live thing you can do.
What kind of scent are we talking about here?
Probably dead people. Infected. I can't imagine infected smell very good.
I was going to say, how do they get that scent?
There's a lot of, I mean, smelling technology has come very
Hmm.
far, very far. So actually, the thing is, like, not to be morbid here, but like, and I've never smelled this, but I've always heard that the smell of death is a very unique, awful scent. And it's like, I don't think you actually want to, yeah, I don't think you want to actually replicate that for real. So
Right.
it would probably be like, I don't know, because this demo was like the subway sequence in part two.
Okay. Okay.
Probably smells like piss in a subway or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's I mean, I don't know. Is this going to lead to something, or is this them just kind of playing around at CES with an idea?
Actually, I would think this would be real eventually. It would just be because like one thing Sony's outlined for yeah, how they want to utilize IP, not just TV and film. Like they want to do entertainment experiences. Like they had that Last of Us experience in Orlando. I want to say it was. It was like
Okay.
a horror park. They have the Uncharted like roller coaster in Spain. I think it is. Like there is money to be made in like theme park experiences. So this to me reads as like a thing you'd stick in a theme park. You know?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that theme park participation there. That okay, I get that. So, like you mentioned, Orlando has their horror kind of section opening up. I think this year it's like part of their like their whole park. They're doing big revamp.
Yeah.
Maybe it fit in well there.
So yeah, something like that. I mean, the thing I'm sure you could look at this and think, "Oh, that's ridiculous and stupid and silly," and it's one of those CES things that'll never happen. But it's like, actually, that lines up with what the company's openly outlined and has done before. Like location based entertainment's a pretty big deal. So I would think actually they have every intention of maybe trying to sell that to theme parks or something. So there's that. The scent thing is interesting though, especially for a game that's like, or like a world that's, it can't smell good. That world
No,
can't smell
that
good.
world does not smell good. No, nothing about that world is good for that.
No.
For scent. I wonder if we're gonna have to check in with Nano to see if he tried this out. See
Yeah,
the CES now.
he's
So
at CES. I would love to see if he did do this because I want him to tell me what it smells like.
yeah.
We actually had a separate like movie news story, but like I forgot about this project. The Shadow of the Colossus movie. We got an update for this as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, this was announced over 10 years ago. The director, Andy Muschietti, has given an update on the adaptation. He was speaking with La Valera de Cosa. Muschietti
Give it
said
a
the
shot.
Muschietti said the project is still going, and the possibility for it happening is now opening up. He says he likes the script, but there's still hurdles like the financial side. So more or less explaining, the issues with getting a movie off the ground is the movie studio crunching numbers, determining what the budget should be. So like he was explaining he would like the highest amount, like for example, $200 million instead of say $100 million. But he did say like it's opening up now, which hey, I'll tell you, I mean, a movie announced 10 years ago, well before like PlayStation Productions was a thing, and now it is, and they're like a lot more serious about getting PlayStation IP adapted.
Yep.
Maybe that's why this is finally happening.
That's what I'm thinking. I think it's just Sony is being more aggressive with the media outside of games. As we just saw at CES, show up Consumer Electronics Show and you announce movies and TV series and stuff. So this would be the time to go pitch again. Shadow of the Colossus. I'm wondering what kind of show or movie that would be.
Well, it would be a movie, but he said script, and right off the top, I'm like, all right, well, there shouldn't be a script. In
Oh yeah, it should
theory,
be quiet. You should be
yeah.
mute the whole time.
But like,
Oh,
obviously, that's not what this would be. So, because I think many people would make a sound argument of like, one, it shouldn't be a movie, or two, if it is a movie, like they're just gonna fuck it up. Like they're not gonna handle it right because it's a very unspoken sort of crazy thing that plays out in that game. So how do you make that a movie in today's environment?
yeah. That would be something where it'd be a bit more like artistic or creative and would probably fall in line with what we see at times from a Netflix original or like Amazon with their Prime stuff, where they'll just throw money at something to see what if it sticks. And maybe that's the idea. Sony partnering with another platform like a Netflix, something to get funding, and maybe that's kind of what they mean by it's opening up, because you're right. Now that I think about it, it would be weird if you had all this exposition and dialogue and stuff and Shadow of the Colossus. It should be, I mean, the movie would be, I guess it would be kind of interesting because it'd almost be like a silent film, but you should have a protagonist who is just not really saying it. They should be able to tell the story through just visuals.
Yeah, maybe like a super huge budget A24 style movie or something.
Yeah.
Although I don't know what their movie budgets are. I would assume they're like a bit more modest. So
That could be crazy in IMAX though, like where they can kind of give you that's almost that scale of like of some of these big enemies and stuff that you're going up against.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they did it right, it could actually be incredible. But due to the nature of like what the game is, I think adopting this and trying to make a lot of money out of it's going to be hard to do. So can't see that necessarily going well. But there was that. We're actually mostly caught up, so that's
cool. Good stuff.
Pretty much what we missed there over the holiday weekend, holiday period, if you will.
Do you have a PSX going to give it to you?
As always.
Oh, cool. All right, let's see what we got.
PSX going to give it to you. The part of the show where we go over a interesting point in PlayStation history, maybe something nostalgic, obscure, unique. We just talk about things in PlayStation history. Now, because we had the story earlier about the seminar with PS5 Pro, the AMD collaboration, I thought, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of parallels between that and PlayStation 3. So, the history lesson here is that PS3 was supposed to release in 2005. It's been well documented. The console was meant to come out a year earlier than it did. Part of the reason for that was Ken Kutaragi, like one really bizarre thing he wanted to do, multiple sources that have already like sort of vouched for this being in the timeline here, but they wanted to like, there was this weird circumstance where at a certain point, PS3 had no GPU. They had he wanted to put 2 cell processors in this thing and just all SPEs, right? So the console was late because one aspect of development was the thing had no goddamn GPU.
Love it.
So not only was Cell in collaboration with IBM and Toshiba, but the sort of last minute thing that Sony did here was partner up with NVIDIA. So the RSX is a very similar off the shelf part back then. And so that was like what they sort of whipped up in the kitchen last minute to get PlayStation 3 out the door.
So what would it look like with 2 cell processors?
So the thing about that too is like, I guess at the time, like this was around the time that Naughty Dog formed the ICE team, the Initiative for a Common Engine. And they like had to sort of make the case to Japan, like, you can't do this. Like you can't I forget what it was exactly. They might've had to like make a vertical slice or sort of build core technologies on 2 cells or something, but they basically just like told Japan, this is awful. This is a really bad idea. Like this thing needs a GPU, something like that. I'm sure I'm getting the timeline a little bit off or something, but like that is basically what happened. That's the documented story of what went on behind the scenes. Because obviously PlayStation 3 was kind of a shit show for a lot of its development, but that's one aspect that is always like, I think overlooked, is that the GPU was like not a thing for a while on that machine.
That's so funny. We were this close to getting like the ultimate weird bespoke system. So close.
So yeah, one would argue we got it, but it seems like there was a different timeline there.
There has to be a PS3 out there within Sony that has 2 cell processors on it right now.
Like they just got the board somewhere in the back and it's like just 2 cells on it.
Oh, come on. Somebody out there has to know. Like we've had the Nintendo PlayStation show up online. In someone's attic right now, there is a PS3 with 2 cell processors on it.
You would think. You would hope.
That would be incredible.
I hope it's in the lab.
Man, I do wonder if the PS3 already went through so many issues, as you mentioned, with development with third parties, and that was with an NVIDIA GPU, 2 cell processors. But also, I almost wonder, like that's like the low end of the whole thing, like the worst case scenario. What would have the best case scenario been? Like what, when Sony gets their, like the first party developers get their hands on it and they get everything out of it, what could 2 cell processors have done? That'd be interesting, right? Just to see.
You would think that if the console was successful, that would dynamically shift like everything, right? Like it would completely change and warp the industry and how we fabricate and make chips. And like, wouldn't that fundamentally change like so much if that took off?
Yeah, the other thing about it is like the PS3 has its memory divided, 256 on the GPU and like 256 for the cell. I assume if they had two cells, it would have just been one big pool of 512. Although I guess they could have been really weird about it. 256 and 256 actually split them between two cells, but that's something else that actually maybe would have been a benefit. Although, I mean, I feel like Naughty Dog knows better than all of us, and they said it was bad, so it was probably bad.
Well, I think that it's funny you mention that. I think the memory split was a byproduct of the whole late GPU thing.
Yep. It's right on top of the GPU, right? Right there,
so
boom.
So that, if anything, that was already like, we've got remnants of that just brewing. And that was the reason why you couldn't make too many saves in Skyrim.
Oh, man.
All those years later.
Jeez, yeah.
Or like, you couldn't like pick up or put things down or something in the same file for too many times or something like that.
Or Bayonetta went to like single digit FPS.
I always sometimes think about like an alternate timeline where, like, because the whole point of Cell, again, like Amethyst, is like they wanted to include, they like wanted Cell to be this like this thing that like a lot of people would buy from. Like you'd start seeing Cell processors and televisions and server blades, which there actually were some server blades that did come out, but laptops and microwaves and just anything that had like a board on it, like it would be powered by Cell. They really wanted the thing to, like, think about where we would have been if they kept going with Cell and PS4 was Cell and PS5 was Cell. Think about that. Cell is powerful. Like if people put time and energy into it, they got a lot out of it.
Yeah, they did. The PS3 can do some really cool stuff with certain titles. But then other titles, if they didn't spend the time on it, it got ugly. Got bad.
That's the issue. That's it, though. We don't live in that timeline. That's PSX. Go and give it to you.
So, Ryan, what's the plan for Freedom Wars? You picking it up?
Not right now. I am in the middle of playing Final Fantasy.
Whoa. Hold on. Which Final Fantasy? What?
I did tell you before, I wanted to start 7 Remake again and platinum it before moving to Rebirth. So I'm doing that. Because I also didn't play the intermission DLC either. But I want to play on my main account, get the platinum, do intermission, go into
integrate.
Go into Rebirth, yes.
Okay, so you're doing that right now. Then you're going into Rebirth.
I'm very determined to see it all the way through. I want to get to Rebirth, but I'm also just like, I didn't do intermission yet, so I want to like see it all and have that sort of through line of like I experienced the whole thing again from one intermission to then Rebirth. So I'm right in the middle of Remake right now.
Okay, so, you are playing. Okay,
so that means no Freedom Wars remastered.
Man, I'm picking it up right away.
Good for you. I mean, I already did my time on Vita. Thank you. So
yeah, apparently the trophy list is the same.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll get it. I'll play it and see how, I mean, the scores came out tonight, actually. The review scores dropped tonight, which was interesting. Mm-hmm. It was like mid 70s on Metacritic, which is all right.
It's a solid game. It's a solid game. Yeah. I like I like the sentence hook. That's what it is. You're a prisoner, and every mission you do, you lower your sentence.
Yeah. Do you think you'll be on Rebirth this year?
Here, like I started 7 Remake, I want to say a week ago, and like I told myself, like, no, you're gonna like actually play this. Like, don't stick to it. And so I've already got like 20 hours into it.
Okay,
I'm like, I'm trying to, get through it again, and now I'm like remembering like why I chose not to platinum it to begin with, because it's like 2 minimum playthrough, and you have to get all the dresses and. So I'm also kind of like, oh yeah, all this again, but I'm enjoying my time with it.
Well, if you're gonna platinum Rebirth, that's like 200 plus hours.
I know, but it's one of those things where it's like if I start it on the main profile, then I know I'll at some point probably go back to it. Just like all the PS4 games I haven't platinumed yet, and I told myself I'd go back to, and I didn't. So I'm just continuously lying to myself.
Well, if your prediction comes true. The third one will be shown by the end of this year. You might want to at least get through Rebirth, see where the story is. Just saying.
That's the thing. Yeah, I really want to make sure I go all the way through Rebirth because I've been trying to avoid everything up to this point, so I want to get it done soon.
I have no idea how they show a trailer for the third one without spoiling the second one.
Ooh, okay. Now you're motivating me more.
No idea. I don't know. I don't know how they do it. Like,
All right. Well, now we got to end this so I can get back to playing.
I'm just saying, you want to get to Rebirth, get through that because they're going to show some stuff in that trailer, and it's. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
John, stop.
Well, go play it. Go play it. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us for Click R3. We will be back in a couple of weeks with Nano. He'll tell us about CES, and we'll talk about everything PlayStation once again. We'll see you guys then.
See ya.